See Chat, what's up? How's it going? Hello, hello, hello. Oh, let me get this over here. There we go. There we go. Okay, so the guy below me is not Mystic Salon. But the name is kind of like hardwired into the overlay, so that is Scourge. Okay. And Scourge is an old friend. We did a podcast a while back that we lovingly and jokingly called ROMHA, which is
like a sandwich.
Exactly. Which is the Reach Out Mental Health Awareness podcast. And we've been talking about bringing it back. And so I thought, you know, might be a good idea. You know, he reached out to me. He's like, hey, what are you up to? What are you doing? You know, just sitting here vegetating. He's like, well, you know, would you like to do kind of like a introductory kind of thing and kind of talk about it and like why it kind of disappeared and shit like that? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do it. So You know, he knows, you know, the content that you guys are used to. He understands that, you know, this channel is dedicated to the occult. But I do believe that mental health is one of those things that, you know, us as occultists, you know, it's something that kind of goes, you know, hand in hand, you know, with our path, right? It's one of the reasons why we're on our path. We're on our path because we want to be better people, right? For ourselves, for our loved ones, you know, and you know that is kind of like where kind of like that kind of falls in. So figured, well, screw it. Let's do it over here. Let's do it on, you know, Malice Experience. So this is an episode of the Malice Experience. It isn't necessarily ROMHA just yet. Um, you know, uh,
Give me a second. My child is currently just beating into my door. What do you need? I'm in the middle of doing a podcast. What do you need?
and this is kind of like, you know, on oh, we'll mute him real quick. There we go. Yeah, it is Kaizen. It is important, right? You know, I think working both sides of that, both hands of it, right? You know, the occult side of it and the mental health part of it is very important, right? You know, and I think that, you know, having this conversation, you know, kind of bringing things kind of back in, you know, or you know, is a good place to do it, right?
Listen, let's not lie to your chat. Honestly, the only reason I'm doing this is so I can hear your voice again. Like, we're just gonna be like just straight up with it. The voice of Malice in my ear holes, as we so lovingly called it, you know, about a year and a half ago, was the mouth hugs, and that's exactly what this is. So we're not gonna lie about this, chat. We want Malice's voice in our ears. You all know it. I know it. It's fine. But ultimately, we started doing these mental health podcasts, the two of us, a while ago. It was mental health was a thing that was important to both of us. It's been a passion of mine since I was, you know, a content creator on Mixer, and it's always been a focal point of my content. You know, something letting people know that it's always, you know, I hate to use the term like it's a safe place, but ultimately, you know, when I say that, it's not one of those, you know, types of situations where people are like, oh, you know, it's a safe place. No, it's a spot where you're not alone. You know, everybody deals with their own mental struggles. Everybody's fighting a battle that we may not all see. And, you know, Malice and I talked a lot, and we got to the point where it's like, you know what, being that this is a thing that we both enjoy, that we're both passionate about, why don't we bring this passion to everyone else? And it started off as just simple conversations, which is exactly what this is going to be. Today's introductory, second inaugural episode is more of a generalized chat between the two of us. As we had this, you know, uploaded on the podcast, and we had a few episodes out, and I think going into what I will lovingly call season 2, will kind of explore a little bit more from a personal side of both Malice and I. Um, my life kind of went down the drain terribly, and it with with Mixer closing, which is what my livelihood is based off of at the time, and I, you know, being a partner content creator over there, I dedicated all of my time into making content and playing games and doing this podcast. I mean, we were doing this weekly, and then we were like, you know what, maybe we're gonna burn out if we do this, so we switched it to bi-weekly, and then we were doing really well with it, and then just life. You know, and then when Mixer crashed and I wound up going to other platforms and other platforms, I was bouncing around, and I was just kind of like, I was lost, and it wasn't really doing well for me mentally. I was internalizing a lot, and then I started avoiding everyone, including Malice. Like, I kind of dropped off the face of the earth. I don't think I talked to him for like 6 months. Like,
Something
I
like
was just
that,
gone.
yeah, something like that.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't face it. I felt like a failure. And I mean, Malice will tell you that is one of my biggest fears, is failing, because I tried so hard to get where I was. I mean, it wasn't like it was an easy battle either. I mean, we sat there. I mean, from going like from Fortnite days to Rainbow Six Siege, you know, building up to 17,000 followers. When we would do a reach out podcast at the time, and when we would just do an episode, like we had chat moving, and it like fueled us. It was like we got more to talk about, and it got to the point where an hour and a half would pass by and be like, "Oh shit, we should really end this episode." I was like, "This is getting kind of long," you know, and it just kind of collapsed. And I didn't want to come on doing a reach out episode like a hypocrite, because I wasn't reaching out to anybody. I wasn't talking to anyone. And even though Malice would be like randomly, he'd send me a message like, "Hey man, the fuck you doing? Like, what's going on?" So a bunch of time has passed, and you know, I'm no longer just a full-time content creator anymore. I still do my own content and all, and that's something that we'll get to at some other point in time. But I'm finally at the point where I've been taking the steps to kind of better myself, and really, I'm not going to say enjoy life, because life has been kind of shit lately as well, but I'm at a point where I think I'm a little bit more set to like handle it and do these types of things again. So Malice, first off, I am just going to say, you know, thanks for even giving me the opportunity to bring this back with you, because this was always something very dear to me. So number one, thank you. Number two, because it's reach out, everybody knows Malice and I are not, we can't give professional advice. Absolutely not. This is just two dudes talking, personal experiences, all that fun stuff when it comes to mental health related. But as always, we are here to chat, to talk, to hear from you, hear from each other, bounce off each other, talk shit to each other, flirt with each other, because I flirt with him constantly. He knows it. It's fine. But now you guys are going to get to see me, which you guys have no idea who I am, so it's fine. Anyways, Mouse, I'm going to pass this back to you. I'm done talking with my verbal vomit.
No, I mean, it's like, I mean, I don't think there's any need to thank me for doing this. You know, I mean, this is something that, you know, I always enjoy doing. It was always, you know, something important to me, because mental health has always been something that I've dealt with on a day-to-day basis. You know, I have constant, consistent ups and downs with it. You know, and, you know, like, you know, what Stephanie says, you know, in the chat, you know, it's like, you know, we've dealt with all of those things as well, you know, dealing with our past traumas, overcome addiction and depression, right? You know, to be where we are and, you know, try to kind of move forward and, you know, beyond those points of where we were. And, you know, like, yes, you know, for me, you know, definitely started hail Satan, you know, you know, or as I like to say, hail thyself, which is the idea of hail thyself does come from a place of not just, you know, left-hand path, but the combination of left-hand path and mental health, right? To hail thyself, to believe in thyself, to believe in your own abilities, to believe in what it is that you are able to do for yourself, right? That is where hail thyself is derived from, right? Because the first thing that needs to be okay before anything else in our lives is okay is us.
Yep.
We need to be okay before our kids are okay, before our wives and our husbands are okay, our boyfriends and girlfriends, our friends, our family, before we can ever think about helping somebody else, we need to be okay. And
that's what I think where a lot of the struggle is for a lot of people is, you know, everyone deals with things in their own way, right? I mean, people struggle, people don't, you know, when the spicy sadness hits, you know, things kind of get a little rough in that regard. And a lot of people they're not well equipped enough to figure out how to deal with that. I mean, going in to a depressive state, going into one of those, you know, for those downward swings, as I like to call it, where, you know, the jaws feeling is how I describe it, when you're kind of down, but you feel that like there's that something that's right beneath the surface that's just gonna come to fruition, and you don't quite know what it is. I call that the jaws feeling. when shit's about to go down and you know it's coming, but you're not quite there. And a lot of people, when that happens, it's like it's crippling for a lot of people. And I've dealt with it for years. But to your point, when you have the strength in yourself, it makes those outward battles and those other battles that are coming that much, I'm not going to say easier, but for lack of a better term, easier to deal with, you know? So finding the strength within yourself first before you take those next steps, I think is a very powerful, important thing to deal with.
Almost definitely. And I mean, the path that we walk to get to that point, it's different for everybody. I mean, like Stephanie's saying, like, theistic Satanism, devil worship saved her life. And, that's amazing. I'm glad. I'm very happy that, it did. Same with me. Like, I mean, I am, within left-hand path. I don't want to say Satanist because I don't necessarily worship Satan, but I am, I do theistically believe in, the things that I follow, Baphomet and all of those things. And Baphomet saved my life. And I've talked about it on this podcast many a times. And that was the path that I needed, right? That was what, helped bring me to a point to stay alive, right? And for everybody, that's different. We can't, deny it. We can't deny that, spirituality is a huge aspect of mental health and being able to deal with, problems inside of the mental health. We can't deny that, especially for a lot of us here in this podcast. I think one of the things that you guys are going to start to notice with this show, with Scourge and I, is the show itself is very bipolar. Because
like me.
because the thing is like we'll be really, really serious, and then out of nowhere, like we just kind of start popping off and going at each other, like in a very funny way, right?
Yeah, it's literally what we do. I think it's why we continue doing this as much as we did, because obviously mental health is a serious in itself topic, but if you treat it too serious all the time, it becomes overwhelming. It becomes exhausting, and it's quicksand. If you start to go into that and you just get deep constantly, you just want to go the fuck to bed. So we talk shit to each other, and it makes it better. So it's fine. It works. But actually, I kind of wanted to bring something up really quick. So you know how you were talking about Baphomet and how he saved you. So I have a group chat with my wife and her best friend, and actually one of my stream buddies, Paranoid Malice, you know him. Mm-hmm. And every day he actually sends in daily Baphomations. Yep. And I absolutely love them. And I was just scrolling through the one for today. I think that he sent was a good one, and I think honestly it fits perfectly with what I talked about with this. For today, it says, "You don't have to get over it when everyone else is. You don't have to get over it ever." And I was like, you know what? That is a very, very good point. Mm-hmm. Like, sure, everybody wants to deal with it. And they're like, oh, everybody else has processed this, and then they've dealt with their shit, and everyone's different. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And I was thinking about that, and it's one of the reasons that it kind of pushed me to like kind of ping you today. And I was like, you know what? I think it's time. You get that feeling. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at this, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm probably never gonna get over how everything went to shit, because I was so happy with how far I mean, hell, there was a point in time I was so proud of myself, and I was doing so well. Mind you, chat, this was a while ago. Malice needed a new graphics card, right? Mm-hmm. And I was at a point in my content, in my content career, that I was fortunate enough to be able to provide this for him. And because this man is like a brother to me, I didn't hesitate. He said he needed it. I bought it for him. I sent it to him. But this was years ago at this point. And I'm thinking back on that, and I'm like, where did all of that go? And because it all went away, it crushed me. And I was like, not gonna say that I was like fully ashamed of myself, but in a way I kind of was. Like I didn't want to show my face because I felt like such a failure, and I was like, he's doing his own thing, he's doing well, and I just felt so down on myself constantly, and I didn't want to bring that negative energy. I don't want to. I didn't want to be the hypocrite, and I couldn't stand it, so I didn't want to bring it around. And I'm, as I said, I'm at the point where I may not be better. I may not be 100% better. I may not be, at full, mental capacity, right? But I believe I am at a point now where I can have this type of conversation and not want to silence myself.
Mm-hmm.
And no better person to do it with than the person that I did the original podcast with.
Well, I mean, I don't think like, I mean, I can speak for myself, but I personally feel like I don't feel like any of us are ever really 100% mental capacity, right? Like I think
That's fair.
Like I think we in today's society, like there's a huge issue, when it comes to like social media and stuff like that, right? And we're always looking at the highlight reel of everyone else's life. And as you look at the highlight reel of everyone else's life, it kind of starts to bring you down because you know the dark side of your life. What kind of helped me was kind of like the idea of kind of like understanding. It's like, there's probably a bunch of people looking at my highlight reel thinking the same thing right now. Yeah, it's like, well, why can't my life be as good as his is? It's like, dude, if you only knew.
If you only fucking knew. Everything that you beautiful people see all the time is not what everything is like constantly. We turn off the camera and I'm like, Malice, man, listen, dude, fuck. Like, this shit is just real. And he's like, all right, let's get into the episode. I'm like, hey, everybody. How you doing? Everything's perfectly fine. You want to know how bad my anxiety is? I apparently scratched the fuck out of my head so bad while I was sleeping, I drew blood. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, that's interesting. So, yeah, no. I mean, on camera, everything's perfectly fine. But at the same time, it's... everybody copes and deals with things in a different manner. I mean, one of the things to go right into the whole, strengthening thyself thing, one of the things that helps that I started doing, and even then I still don't kind of do it every day, but I have take my own steps to kind of push me out of that negative space. They say when you want to change your life and you want to do things for the better, and you want to pull yourself out of that rut, you want to pick small victories. You don't want to set some massive unobtainable goal. I said goal. Okay, that's where we know where my brain is today. Gone. Anyways,
it's a new word. It's a goil. It's not goal anymore. It's not goal anymore.
No more
goil.
Goals. It's a goil. Okay, so I set myself small goals. One of them being making your bed. Such a very simple thing to do, but when you're in a deep depressive state, or when you just don't have the energy to do it, and you wake up in the morning and you look at that bed and you're like, fuck this, and you just want to go sit on the couch, or you want to just go maybe make yourself a cup of coffee or something along those lines. If you take that 2 minutes to just make your bed in the morning, right? And then you go about the rest of your day. Throughout the rest of the day, you have accomplished one thing, but you've gotten it done. You have obtained and finished your one little goal. For me, I started off doing that, but I took it a step further. So I used to be just a night owl. I was up all hours of the night playing games, pumping content, doing whatever I could, trying to make memes, clips, and trying to get those things to get on there, and, playing the games that I was playing as a streamer. I was playing Tarkov, trying to crush and get those clips to get on the YouTube videos where they're like, oh, look at all these Tarkov clips, right? And I was like, that was my goal, because the more I could do that, then I could get into, the rivals thing and do all that. And I was like, so I set myself a different goal. When the bed stuff didn't work anymore, behind me there's this little workout thing, right? My wife and I, we had to move in February of the beginning of this year, and finding a place to live during all this COVID stuff, when I was a content creator, was difficult, because that's not verifiable income. That is, if you're lucky and you make money. If you're not lucky, you're screwed. So I just got the job. We moved here in end of February. And my new goal at the time, aside from making the bed, I needed to do something more. I needed to feel like I was actually accomplishing something. So I forced myself to get up, make myself a cup of coffee, either get a workout in before I woke my daughter up for school, or like after she was off to school before I was starting my job, I would get a little bit of a workout in. And I started doing that, and I started to feel better physically. And once I started to feel better physically, it kind of started to alleviate the mental drainage that was happening. If you understand what I'm getting at with that, like, you know, when you
Yeah.
just feel so lethargic and shitty and like fucking you're just living next to Shrek's fucking swamp, you just feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
But I started, you know, lifting, and I started, you know, using this fucking thing that was left in the house. I mean, as I told you before we got on the air, I don't believe in coincidences. Everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is here. Let's fucking use it. So months and months of me starting and stopping and starting and stopping and sleeping and starting and stopping, and I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I flipped the switch, and it's just something that I do. It's there. I use it. I just do it now. Even when I'm at work, if I have a lull at work, I hop on and pump out a few reps. Something to just do.
Mm-hmm.
And just from doing that, it's gotten me to this point where I feel like I can actually sit here and have this conversation with you and bring this back. I wanted nothing to do with anything. And now that little victory, day in and day out, that I got something done, it does help. Like I can't even lie. I'm not even gonna fucking be skeptical about it. Like, it does actively fucking help. So for, you know, anyone struggling with day-to-day existence, hello everyone, hi. That one small goyle a day, it does make a difference. And thank you, Malice, for coining goyle. It's fine.
Yep. Got to get those goils done. I do want to kind of go through chat because there's a few people that kind of said some stuff that, you know, I kind of want to.
Yeah, go for it.
You know, mention.
Honestly, you can just tell me to shut the fuck up whenever you want. It's fine.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to do that. So Obscura is in here. Says thank you for doing this today. It's not a problem at all. DA, let's see here. Let's say I deal with extreme anxiety every single day and social anxiety, but my Satanism has really helped me realize that I am the only thing that can make things better, and you are the only one at the end of. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I mean, everybody's path is different. Same for me. My spirituality has definitely been like kind of like that catalyst point that's been like, you know, I'm the only one that can make, if something needs to change in my life, I'm the only one that can do it. Like I look at my spirituality like one, like, you know, I talk about this a lot on, you know, the normal podcast, where one of my biggest issues with like Christianity, you know, Catholicism and stuff like that is I always looked at it as like the lazy man's religion. You know, you drop down to your knees and pray to God and hope God changes something. And if God doesn't change it, then God's will. And if, you know, if God does change it, then, you know, glory to God. And, you know, it's like, right. It's just kind of like, so you have no power in the situation then. Like, so if something good happens, something bad happens, it's because God wanted it. And it's either his will or glory to God. But you, what about glory to you, glory to yourself, you know, like your own ability to get yourself, like, so that means like if you get out of a tough situation, you didn't get out of a tough situation, you got out because God wanted you out. No, I'm sorry. It's just like, I don't fucking buy into it. And it's just so disempowering, that idea that I have no control over anything that happens in my life, you know?
I agree.
So
I
like
agree 100%, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, to see so many people kind of like mentioning that in the chat, like saying like, hey, you know, like this, my spirituality is what's helping me out. It's why I am Left Hand Path. It's why this channel exists, you know, is because of that idea, because we are the ones with the power. We do have that control, right? I mean, sometimes depending on who you are, maybe medication might help, you know, if a doctor so says is necessary. But at the end of the day, who's the person who's got to drag your ass to the doctor to get that prescription?
Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. It was kind of like in the back of my head about that. Did you see that that thing recently I talked about, that study that they did for the people that were taking the antidepressants, how there was no link in the chemical imbalance to depression, and
I have
how
I've not seen that. So you're saying it's like a pure
so
placebo effect?
yeah. So there was a study that went out, or people were talking about how the people that deal with depression, and it was just directed at depression. They didn't talk about bipolar disorder, borderline, none of that stuff. It's just depression they talked about, and how now they say that it's the chemical imbalance. You know, when you don't get your dopamine and all that, that's what causes depression. They said there's absolutely no link to it, and as all these medications that came out, so it was just a way. It was like a money grab, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there and I was thinking about that, and I was very curious, and like I haven't dove in really any more to it because I didn't want. I was very confused because personally, to me, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I do not feel that the millions of people that have taken antidepressants are all being affected by a quote unquote placebo. I don't I don't feel that that is an actual thing. Now, maybe there isn't a link to a chemical imbalance. Maybe that's just a thing. Maybe there's something different that we're missing. But I don't feel that the millions and millions of people that have benefited from antidepressants are all under a quote unquote placebo effect. I don't think that's possible. Now, people taking SSRIs, it helps for a multitude of reasons. There are people that take SSRIs for, ADHD, anxiety, going into depression. People take them for bipolar disorder because bipolar disorder, they haven't disproven it, is a chemical imbalance in the brain. And these antidepressants that people take, it helps them. So I find it very confusing and almost conflicting to feel that these medications are literally just there for a cash grab. Now, don't get me wrong. I do feel that a lot of that the whole pharmacy thing in general for people and the amount of money they charge for medications that people need to function is absolutely fucking insane. But what do you think about this whole like there's no link that quote unquote it is just all in your head? Like what's your take on that?
Um, I'm gonna have to go to safe route here and just say I'm not qualified to, you know,
Oh, Malice,
um,
no.
I'm not qualified to have an
Okay,
opinion on that.
so
I don't think
no, no.
I don't think that um you know now personally now I'm not qualified to medically answer that question.
Yes,
Um,
obviously.
but I personally, in my personal opinion, find it extremely difficult to believe that every single person on antidepressants, or even antipsychotics, and things like that, are merely responding to a placebo effect, right? I just
Mhm.
can't. And there, Scarlett Bale's Brain Witch, that is our resident therapist. Scarlett, we're going hardcore into the mental health stuff today. If you would like to, come on in and join the conversation, it would be greatly appreciated. And would be the second time that we've pulled you in, just like last minute. But so psychiatric nurse practitioner. There we go.
See, I love the
And
official title so much more. That official title was great. Like, beautiful. Go for it.
right. And DA, I've been on Wellibutrin. Not currently, but I was. It was. I think it was the last antidepressant that I was on. Um, so, are Scarlet or the Three Hearts a yes that you would like to be brought in? Is that what that is? Uh, um, but yeah, so I do find it really hard to believe that like everyone is responding to, just a placebo
Because it's just,
effect,
I
like
just
that
don't
they.
find it possible. Like it does help. Like, yeah, sure. But I think the main thing here is it helps some people. For some, it doesn't. There's a multitude of different medications. Hell, like I still haven't found the right regimen for me, the one that I'm supposed to be taking. And I also haven't taken my ass to the doctor. But now that I have insurance and all that, I can just start that wonderful journey of figuring out the correct medication regimen again, because as much as I don't want to do the medication thing, because I'm trying to work on it personally myself and see if I can find ways to better myself, there may very well be the regimen out there that will work and it'll help me function more optimally. I saw that, and I was just one of those times when you look at it and everything was just confusing to me, and I didn't feel that was right. But again, I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a trained professional in any of this. I'm just some dude that's passionate about mental health that likes looking into these things. And I just found it kind of weird that they said that there wasn't a link, and I was like, I don't find that comforting.
I mean, where did they
honest.
where did they pull that information from though? Like,
I think it was like years of testing. So what sparked all of it was, interestingly enough, was a thing with Tom Cruise of a long time ago, and he was talking about how they're like, it's all just bullshit, right?
Oh, of course, the Scientologist. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so then, which is why I was, this skepticism kind of kicked in at that point. But that you're looking into the study and the article and all that, and they were talking about how there wasn't any link for it, that there was no chemical imbalance for it. I don't understand how have we been so misled over all of these years? I mean, the medical advancements alone in the past decade. Is this an
FDA study?
I have to try and I don't even remember where the article is anymore. I just kind of popped it. I'll have to find it and I'll try to send it to you and we can revisit it. But
yeah, because the thing is like, I get a lot of these antidepressants, a lot of these medications are, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of them, I think they have to be FDA approved in order to be prescribed by doctors.
I believe so. Yeah.
Which means the FDA actually has to go in and check to see if this drug actually does have the effect on people that it's supposed to have in order to be able to be prescribed for a particular thing.
Yeah.
They should make a comedy movie called The Nutty Scientologist. Fuck yeah. I'd watch that movie. Yeah, Scientologist. Oh my God. So I'm the type of person. Maybe I should make videos doing this. I think maybe you guys would enjoy these videos. So I try to get involved in organizations that I don't want anything to do with, like that I can't stand.
Surprise me.
Like I'm a member of Scientology, but that was just because I was curious. So I just kind of infiltrated and fucking shit is insane and expensive. Forget insane, it's expensive. Right? If you want to move up in the organization, the only reason I didn't actually continue moving up in the organization is it's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars in order to actually take certain tests that you have to take in order to move up in Scientology. Right? Like it's not like, you're in there and you can keep moving up and learning. No, it's like you have to pay money. Right?
The EA sports religion. Please pay to unlock the next level of this religion. It's super fun.
So yeah, no, it's definitely I can't even pronounce that.
Psilocybin research. I agree. I've been looking into that as well. I'm hopeful. And actually, so the Brain and Research Foundation is one of the mental health charities that I would, not really charity. Obviously it's a foundation, but when I was raising money for them, everything goes to funding their research. There's like literally nothing else. I did a whole bunch of research into this foundation, and the work that they've done, and they're going into a bipolar study, and I've been very closely following that to see, and they're finding, they're in the middle of testing a new drug that supposedly helps. So with bipolar, you have the high end of the spectrum, where people that are like not necessarily in a constant manic phase, but they've got that energy and that consistent, but then the crashes hit hard. And then you've got the other side of it, where the people that are more depression based, and then when they go through those manic phases, when they're all super down in the dumps and all that, and they hit the manic episode and they can fucking move mountains, and like run a marathon and clean the entire house in 3.5 hours, and they have that level of energy that they're just not used to.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the medications that they've been working in and testing is for people that deal with the lower side to kind of bring it up and kind of find that balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I am, if I could sign up for the trial of that, man, let me tell you, I'd give my left nut to be a part of that trial. I would love to know what it feels like to feel quote unquote balanced for a day. So yeah,
All right, you're gonna cut here for a second, guys. Give me a second. We're gonna bring Scarlett in. So I'm just gonna get this all set up. All right, but we will be right back there. Those are the words that are trying to come out of my mouth.
Small goils, small goils.
Small goils. All right, guys. So there's a quick, setup there just to kind of bring Scarlett in. So we got Scarlett in over here. So thanks for jumping in with us. Greatly appreciate it. I know that when we do topics, like when I do topics on mental health, like you like being present. So this is the second time this has happened, by the way. Like where we're doing a topic that's completely mental health related. Scarlett jumps in, and then next thing you know, she's on the show.
I don't mind.
And the more people, the better.
Yeah, keeps it rolling. So Scarlett, so what do you think about this thing that Scourge is talking about here? Like, I guess they did the study saying that there is no evidence to prove or show that there is any change in chemical balances in the brain when taking antidepressants.
What do you mean that there's no?
So I mentioned it. So I saw a study a while, but there was an article that came out where they was like revisiting something from like the 90s, right?
I know what you're talking about.
Where there's no evidence stating that it's a chemical imbalance leading to depression.
That is a 50-year. That is so old. That whole concept is so old, and it's not completely giving the right context to people.
That makes me happy already. I would love for you to elaborate just a little bit more to make my brain happy.
Yeah, so that is a long time thing where the possibility of people having enough serotonin, if that is the primary source of why we get depressed. And it's not just serotonin. It's going to be because serotonin is a factor that kind of drives all the other stuff, So if you've got an upheaval in serotonin, then you're going to get an upheaval in all the other neurotransmitters too. But with what we've seen in brain scans and what what we've noticed over time with antidepressants is that there has been seen low serotonin levels, and when serotonin is supplied to people that suffer from certain types of depression, then there's a definite increase. I mean, you can't put an article out, one article, that says serotonin may not be the cause of depression and not explain it fully, because
I agree.
we see people taking antidepressants and improving. So
yeah, and that's where my standpoint of that was, is they put this out and so many people were talking about it and commenting on it and doing this whole thing. Is, obviously you're not going to be one of the people that gets all their information from the internet, right? But you see an article that's mental health based, and I always wind up clicking on those because I'm curious. I like, whether it's factual or opinion or anything of the sort. There are these people talking about it and saying like, oh, the SSRIs don't help and they do this, and then people taking these types of antidepressants don't do this. And I just sit here and I'm like, the amount of people that take antidepressants, like there's no way that they're just not affected by this. There's not, like, there's a reason why they've been prescribed for as long as they have, and why they're still going in and doing research into these things. I was like, there's no way. But then these people believe it, right?
yeah.
And it just adds to the stigma of people that deal with mental health issues, people that have these invisible battles. And the more that it gets stigmatized, we 1 step forward, 12 steps back. And I think it's insane.
It is insane, and but I do like the fact that everybody is starting to become more curious and are definitely, because really when you find an article like that that's written by a .com or whatever, something that doesn't sound right, then what you need to do is you need to look for the peer-reviewed articles. You have to look for the RCTs. You have to look for the randomized controlled trials. You have to look in resources and try to find the articles that can back up this other article saying that serotonin is not the main source of why we have depression. There are other. Not everybody can use an SSRI, right? So SSRIs are only good for maybe a quarter of the population or so.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And other people's, they won't get an effect. So I think it's worth noting that serotonin is made in the gut. So if you're drinking a lot, if you're an alcoholic, then you're affecting your serotonin levels, and that's going to cause you depression. If you've got gut issues, that's going to affect serotonin levels, because serotonin is made in the gut. And it's also used as a neurotransmitter as a modulator. It's one of the monoamines. So it's along with norepinephrine, dopamine, GABA, and glutamate. All of these neurotransmitters is what is working to make a balance in the brain. Depending upon what's going on with people's brains, whether they got bipolar, schizophrenia, maybe they got depression, maybe they got a personality disorder. Also, when people have things like ADHD or autism, which are sensory perception, or how a delayed processing, all these factors have to be considered. So it's not just about the medication. It's not a magic pill. There is no pill that cannot make you feel sad, right? There's the emotional part, right? So we can try to fix the level of neurotransmitter that's in the brain, whether you're taking Wellbutrin or you're taking an SSRI or if you're taking a second-generation antipsychotic. You can take these things to try to balance the neurotransmitter, which may be causing some of these symptoms, but when it comes down to it, does the person have trauma? Does the person have a reason other than neurochemical to be depressed? And if that's the case, then there's no pill that's going to fix that. That's a matter of doing therapy, finding the right therapist, and doing the right type of work. So
Malice, I like her. We need to keep her around for all of these, like every single one. My God. Oh, it is so refreshing. Holy shit. Okay, sorry. I apologize for my outburst. That was just amazing.
Yeah, no, it really depends. Like antipsychotics and antidepressants, they really do help for a lot of people. I know that I'm on Lexapro, right? But there's a group of people that have taken Lexapro,
yeah,
and
I'm
are
one of
now
them.
and
Doesn't
now they're suffering no libido, not having any emotions, right? It's called PSS, and there's a group of people where there are certain medications out there that can fuck you up, right? So there's always risks and there's benefits. So that always has to be weighed out. What's one of the ways we look for bipolar when we suspect someone has bipolar? We give them an SSRI and we see if they go into a manic phase. We look for, SSRIs have a black box warning of suicidal ideation. There's a possibility that you could give somebody an SSRI and they become more suicidal, and then you take them off. So it's a matter of the monitoring. It's no guarantee, but it is shown to work in most people. And so that's why it becomes the first line or the second line. It's what's working for most people. Prozac has been around since the 80s. Prozac is usually everybody's first go-to. It's approved, FDA approved for youngins, and we can give it to them. But it's also the most activating. So
yes.
Like
different medicines, obviously, to your point, they different people will have different reactions to it. I was when I was beginning my it's like my second or third round of trying to find the right regimen, because I'm what they call rapid cycling bipolar disorder is what I deal with. They put me on triliptol, and that one I didn't notice it at first, but that medication after the first week of me taking it, every time I had like no fuse. You know how most of the time, especially when you have kids, your level of patience kind of extends, and you kind of get that level where you're like, you can deal with a bunch of shit. After a week of me taking triliptol, I had absolutely no fuse. Like the smallest thing would happen, and I would just go off the fucking rails. And I didn't notice it at first, and my wife was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I was like, "The fuck do you mean?" And she's like, "You're being a dick." And I'm like, "I'm always a dick." And she's like, No, not to this level." And I was like, "Oh." And I stopped taking it, and I was like, "Oh shit, I was just angry all the fucking time."
So, looking up, do you know the actual name of that?
Oxcarbazepine.
Oh, okay. So they give you, that's a mood stabilizer.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so if they're giving you a mood stabilizer and then you're becoming incredibly irritable, I would first ask, like, what was the dosage that they started you on? Was it low enough? And then, look into that. Did they end up put you on something else?
They took me off of it and they put me on Latuda, and then I ran out of insurance, so I haven't been able to get myself back on a regimen since. But now I'm working again. This coming year, I'm going to start the process again of trying to find the right combo and figuring out what's going to work. So I've been unmedicated for the past like 2 years.
What's that been like for you?
What, being unmedicated?
You had these rapid cycles, you said, right? So here's the thing. Like, I've been looking into, here I am right here. This is what I have to read today. I've got 5 or 6 of these peer-reviewed journals I have to read because my stepson is also considered bipolar, but I don't think he's bipolar. I think he's ADHD and autistic. And I think he has BDP, but it's questionable because he also felt like he was rapid cycling. And it just didn't make any sense to me. Because if you're rapid cycling, like, why are you rapid? What is a rapid cycle? We have to really start asking questions about our diagnoses. Are we sure that it's bipolar? Have you ever had ADHD? Have you ever been tested for autism? Could it be?
I was never tested or diagnosed with ADHD or autism because that. So, you know how a lot of the times, kids growing up, especially a little bit of the older generation, all of us at this point in time, our parents weren't really looking into, you have ADHD or there's something wrong with you. It was, your kid's perfectly fine. Go out in the sun, go walk around outside. You'll be perfectly fine. When I was growing up, my parents were very much into that whole, there's nothing wrong with him. He's perfectly fine. They took me. I was one of those kids that used to write the really dark, demented and poetry, about cutting myself and all that stuff, because that's what I did. I was a cutter, and I would write all those things, and I thought it was normal, because a bunch of the kids in my school, we were all doing it. We would compare the shit, like we were kind of up. It's it's.
Are you? Are you?
I'm 33.
Okay.
So when I got older, my mother was like, "Hey, you need to go, get yourself, go see a therapist. Your biological father has bipolar disorder." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "We feel like that might be one of the things. We've been talking to a bunch of people and all that, and it just kind of makes sense." And I was like, "All right." So I went to go see a couple of therapists, did the whole thing, was talking about it, and they're like, "All right, so how do you feel like on a normal day?" And I'm like, "Tired." And they're like, "Well, just can you elaborate?" I'm like, "Literally just tired. I don't have energy." And they're like, "Okay." And then one day I would go into there and they're like, "Well, how you feeling today?" And I'm like, "Man," I was like, "I woke up today. I cleaned my room. I cleaned my house. I was like, I went for a run this morning." I'm like, "I don't know what it was," but I was like, "But I feel great." And they're like, "Oh." And then that was continuing over a while, and I would have the lows and I would have the highs, and then they were like, "All right, so we're gonna start." So they started me off on a Cymbalta. And for me, it just, how do I explain how that made me feel? Um, you know, when you take a nap in the middle of the day and you wake up like 20 minutes later, but you felt like you slept for 6 years, and you wake up and you don't know what year it is, what decade you're in, or where the fuck you're at.
Yes.
That's how that made my brain feel consistently. And
Okay.
it was like this fog that I couldn't get through.
Groggy.
So I stopped taking it. And then I wanted, when going through a whole bunch of other shit, then there was the whole, jail thing and a bunch of other things that happened in my life, and it's fine. But I'll say for the past 2 years of me being unmedicated, I can, at this point in time, I can tell when what they call a manic episode is happening. I can tell when my energy levels are off the charts.
Yes.
That's not normal for me. I'm on the very low end. I'm consistently in like a downswing, right? So when I wake up one morning, but I open my eyes and there's not that I kind of want to go back to sleep for 5 minutes. I open my eyes and I jump the fuck out of bed. I'm like, "Oh, this is new." So I'm at the point now where I can tell when things are happening. The thing that sucks is when those episodes hit, when my energy is on the high, if it's not a short burst, I'm up for 72 hours. I just don't sleep, but I'm like so energized the whole time. But when that crash hits,
Mm-hmm.
oh, those crashes are terrible.
What is that like?
Feel like it's like you're in a quicksand that you can't get out of, and there's a level of lethargy that you just can't break. Like your body, me personally, it kind of feels like, when you have a fever and your bones ache.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that, but there's no want to do anything. The things that I would normally enjoy, like sitting here playing games or something like that, it's like none of it. I don't have any interest. I just want to sleep. I don't want to look at anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. If I can find a way to not get out of bed, I will not get out of bed. It's kind of hard when you have a kid and you kind of have to force yourself to do so. So, you find the way to get around it. But
How many days to the hypomanic? I'm sorry that I interrupt. I'll just let you know now I'm autistic and I'm ADHD, so I'll talk over you a lot, and I apologize for that. I do that shit all the time. But how long does the mania last?
So honestly, it depends. Sometimes it'll be like a day. A couple times I've had to go for about a week, but most of the time, when it does happen, it's anywhere from 1 to 3 days that it happens.
And so that would be considered a hypomania. So that's bipolar 2. So when you're diagnosing bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, they go about how long the manic phase lasts. So if it's more than 7 days, so if it's 7 days or more, then it's bipolar 1. If it's less than 7 days, usually 4 days or less, and it's bipolar 2. They consider it a hypomanic. Now, if you go into and get a 5150, which is if somebody feels like they're going to attempt suicide and they call for help and they get 5150, that's what they call.
Mm-hmm.
And they see that you have a mood disorder or you have bipolar, it's automatically bipolar 1. It doesn't matter, have bipolar 1. It's just how the health system works. But notice, you need to pay attention to your cycles and really journal about them, because, it's hard to say. I mean, that sounds like bipolar, definitely, right? But, there could be different ways of treating that. Maybe I don't know why the medication is not working for you, but you're right. it is a crapshoot. It's always a cocktail, right? You have to find the right one, the right dose that's going to work right for you. But definitely therapy as well, because having a mental illness is traumatic in itself, because you go through life feeling different. You feel like you can't connect. And these are the little T traumas that happen that grow to be big T traumas that affect us later in life, that kind of help the negative intrusive thoughts kind of, be supported. See, I told you they weren't going to like you. And that, because it's hard to keep friends, it's, because of the emotionality that's involved. So,
I mean, I don't know how Malice has put up with me for the past 5 years.
well, I heard Malice saying that you were on Wellbutrin at one point, right?
And at one point I was, yes, but I think Malice was also on it at one
Yeah,
point.
I was on it too. Yeah, I was on it too.
I can't even imagine why anybody would put you on Wellbutrin, DA, because it's, I mean, did they know you had bipolar and then they put you on Wellbutrin?
Mm-hmm. They put me on Wellbutrin and Latuda.
Like, why the fuck? Okay, so Wellbutrin is a medication that works solely with dopamine and norepinephrine. So a lot of times people that are kind of depressed, like Eeyore, they'll get like Wellbutrin. For people that are really angry, irritable, bipolar, don't normally get put on Wellbutrin because it's too activating. Because it's your Wellbutrin, it blocks the reuptake of norepinephrine and dopamine. And how does, I don't know if you get psychotic features at all to your bipolar or to depression, but the reason why you get that, one of the theories is because of too much dopamine. If you have too much dopamine, you're going to get hallucinations. You're going to get auditory and visual hallucinations. If you don't have enough dopamine, then you have things like Parkinson's disease.
Really? Is that how that works?
See, Wellbutrin, when I was on it for like 3 months when I was like 17. And the only thing, it just knocked me the fuck out. Like, I would take it and I would just sleep.
That sounds to me like ADHD.
Like what?
ADHD. Opposite effect. The activators and the ones that give you energy and all that have the opposite effect.
I mean, that's exactly what happens when I take my Adderall. The Adderall quiets you down. When someone has ADHD and they get something like Ritalin, Concerta, or Adderall, they don't get energized. Like, I wake up, sure, but I'm not ready, like, off the charts. Like, I just wake up like I've had a cup of coffee, the voice is quiet, and I can focus, and I'm motivated to do stuff. Because the thing with ADHD is, like, you have your impulsiveness, right? You have impulsiveness. So you could have hyperactivity, right? And the impulsiveness is speaking out or asking questions or feeling like you have to ask this question right now. With me, it's because I'm afraid I'm going to forget, because I do. And that's the other thing. People with ADHD have the prefrontal cortex executive dysfunction, which includes working memory, which means that you will be working on something, a paper, hyperfixated into it, say, and then somebody comes in and says, hey, I need you to do this for me. Once I get pulled away, if I try to come back and do the paper, I'm not there, okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yep.
Yeah, and ADHD, it's like even in class, like you're listening to the teacher, and then you get distracted, you're looking away, and then you'll come back and you'll listen some more, and then you'll look away and just get distracted and you'll come back. If something drops in the classroom, somebody drops or breaks a plate, I have to react to it. I can't just sit there and go, okay? You have to react to it. It's just part of the disorder.
Do you deal with a lot of sensory issues as well, like your clothing, like in particular, like you touch it? So the reason I ask, about 2 weeks last week, I took my daughter shopping. Right, we had to get her a couple outfits. And she's ADHD, so they've got her on her her regimen and all that. And we started going through the clothes, and she would walk by and she would touch. She's like, nope, this one doesn't. I can't wear this one. And she'd walk by, and the fact that she's aware of this now is amazing. Because when she was younger, we didn't know, right? She wouldn't wear jeans ever, and I was like, why? She would just scream.
Yeah.
And we would put them on her. So now she's aware of this.
Wet.
Yeah, so she's aware of this sensory thing now, right? When she would go, she would like touch it, and she'd be like, "This one's soft. I can wear this one." And I'm like, "All right." So like we get it, but now because she's been dealing with it now and she's aware of these little issues, it's like it definitely helps in that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, there's this, you really have to do a lot of research on yourself, because if your daughter has ADHD, then somebody has ADHD too. You, your wife, mother.
The wife.
Okay. So.
But here's the thing. So I mean, because I'm not sure. I've never. Well, my wife has seen a lot of things lately where, again, TikTok, of course, where she's been going through, and there've been a lot of these things that are talking about different things that people would have a touch of autism, slightly on the spectrum, and she's like, I do all of these things.
Because ADHD and autism overlap a lot, a lot. And so they are also finding, especially for females, when they have ADHD, then most likely there's autism there too.
In females specifically?
Especially. So TikTok is awesome because TikTok has become the house of neurodivergency. So on there, we're learning about our experiences. There's a lot of experiences that I had growing up that I thought was just me, and I'm hearing other people talk about it, and I'm like, holy frick, right? Like, wow. Yay. There's other people that have this thought or feel this way or have done this thing that I thought was, I've tried to explain to people before, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So there's a site that I like to send all my clients to. Excuse me. It's called EmbraceAutism.com, and they have tons and tons of tests on there. They have the AR, what is it? The ARRS, I think it's the R's, which is the ADHD screening. People want screenings and stuff. You come to me and I can do them for you or with you. You can take these tests on Embrace Autism. The HU is the autism screen. And then there's another one on there. It's called the OSPI quiz. They haven't renamed it yet because we all know that it's not called Asperger's anymore, but the high functioning. And high functioning, low functioning, I'm only saying that because it still hasn't really been wiped out, but there's no really high or low because we all need accommodations, right? It's just a different level of functioning. It's a spectrum. Everything is on a spectrum. Even bipolar. Look at bipolar on a spectrum. Look at personality disorders on a spectrum. Because nobody's going to ever fit into the box.
I have a random question for you. So I'm curious if anybody else, even people in the chat or even Malice, have experienced this. So you know how if you ever get like supremely injured and you wind up going to the doctor and they give you a painkiller, right? A lot of the times, painkillers being downers, they make people like relax and they want to go to sleep and chill out. So for me, since about my teenage years, anytime that I would happen, I would go and they would give me, whether it be Oxycontin, hydrocodone, Vicodin, any of those, I would take those and I would get such a ridiculous amount of energy. And like to the point where like I would go to work and I'm like, oh shit, this hurts, and I would take it and I would knock out all of my work in like 2.5 hours, and I'm like, what the fuck is up? Is that a common thing for like chemical imbalances, bipolar, ADHD? Like,
I'm not really sure, but I can tell you it happens to me too. My husband has given me an Oxycontin because I had a really bad fibromyalgia flare, and I cleaned the whole fucking house. Every time I take Oxycontin, he'd be like, "You want one?" No, I don't, because I'm getting ready to go to sleep. I would take Oxycontin, and it would make me hyper. I take Vicodin, it makes me hyper.
But I gotta say, the other thing with it though is like it gave me energy, but like it quieted the void, I guess. Let me put it that way. Because as I said, I'm mainly like a downswing. Like I'm constantly in that level of depression where it's just where I exist at this point. I exist below the level. So when that would happen and I would take it and I would have that energy, but at the same time, like I wouldn't feel. It was like euphoria, but not like an overabundance of euphoria. It was like, is this what a normal person feels like?
Exactly. That's how I felt. I felt normal. I didn't feel like I had this manic amount of energy or anything like that. I just felt like a normal person without the pain. And I think that's really what it was. my body didn't have the pain, and my body was just like, cool. I don't have.
You ever dealt with that, Malice?
Honestly, no. Like, I mean, I'm always kind of like when you guys are talking about kind of like upswings and stuff like that, like, you know, I've had sensations where it's like, all right, like, you know, I want to do this thing. I want to get something done. I want to be productive. And then like it lasts like 20 minutes to a half an hour. And then I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. Whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, I mean, that's what happens. Like, and it sucks because like there's those moments of clarity. Like I call it clarity. I don't know if it's actually being clear or not, but it's like, so I have like these moments of clarity where it's like, you know, I want to get my, you know, my projects done. I want to jump in on these things, whether it's graphic design or the book or the Oracle deck or whatever it is that I'm doing, exercise, you know, and it literally like, it'll last 20 to 30 minutes. And then I'm just kind of like, I want to I'm not so down like where I just like, I want to sleep. I actually hate sleeping. I really fucking hate. I think it's a waste of time. You know, like obviously you have to do it. Your body needs it, you know, whatever. Okay. But like, that's just like my perspective on it is that it's a waste of time. But like, I'm the type of person, like I'll sit here in front of the computer and I don't want to play a game. I don't want to listen to music. I don't want to watch a movie. I don't want to write anything. I don't want to design anything. I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to be here. And it just kind of like it all these like, I don't want anything, you know, and then like, I'm the type of person that I try to make myself conscious of that emotion. Like of me not wanting to do anything. Like I try to put myself into a conscious state of why do I feel this way? And then I just get angry because I can't figure out why I feel that. I just get pissed. And then I'm fucking irritated all fucking day. Like somebody looks at me fucking wrong. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong? What do you want? Like, because like, I can't figure out why I don't want to do fucking anything. Like at least like when I hear you guys say like, oh, all I want to do is sleep, was at least you want to fucking do something, right? You know, at least you want to, you know, like, you know, at least you have a perspective fucking goal for your goddamn day. Like, you know, me, I'm just like, there's just fucking nothing.
Yeah,
you know,
just sit there and you exist. I get it. I understand. And you just, there's nothing. You don't know. There's nothing you want to do. Like you want to do something, but you don't at the same time.
Exactly. Like you want to find something that like you're gonna look at it or hear it or whatever. Oh yeah, that's what I want to do. And nothing. Like I'll open up a game. I'll open up like 15 different games and play it for like 2.5 minutes. Like nope, that's not working. Nope, that's not working. You know, I'll jump between fucking Apple TV, Hulu, Netflix, fucking Amazon Prime, like all of the fucking.
That was me last night, dude.
Like I'll jump
literally.
Like, and I'll watch like 35 to 45 seconds of something, be like, nope, that's not, and that's and I will spend literally like 4 hours doing this. You know.
Yeah, and then you just wind up aggravated. You're like, what the fuck?
Yep.
Like
Exactly.
none of this. I feel that. I feel that on a personal level, so deep, it's not even funny.
Malice, I'd be interested to know if when you get the urges to work on things, if it's because there's a deadline.
No, actually, it's random. Like I've tried to identify why that happens. Like there's sometimes, for example, like something will trigger it, like I watch a lot of like, you know, health YouTube, you know, like exercise, eating right, you know, that type of stuff. I watch a lot of that stuff. And like when I see certain people doing certain things, it motivates me to kind of go in and try to do something. But then it's weird because like I feel motivated while I'm watching this person which is making this content specific to motivate me. And then the moment I stop watching that content to actually do the thing that I was motivated to do, I no longer want to do it.
And if I was to respond to that in terms of polyvagal, then it sounds like you're exhausted. you're in your dorsal shutdown mode, right, in your belly, and you're too exhausted. It sounds like you've got too much stuff on your plate, and you're not giving yourself enough time to recover.
Hold up, that couldn't be Malice. Too many things on his plate? Never. No, not Malice.
Well, when you have too many things going on, and you're not finding connection, again, in terms of polyvagal, if we're not finding connection and social engagement in the face, and we're constantly going from sympathetic to dorsal, sympathetic, dorsal, sympathetic, dorsal, you're going to constantly be either really highly motivated to do something, or you're going to be completely shut down.
God, this just made so many things click in my fucking brain. It's not even funny.
The problem is that you're not finding that social engagement. You're not finding you're not running your system. If we talk about the polyvagal, has the autonomic nervous system is run on a ladder. It goes the ventral vagal, which is your social engagement system, where you have the ability to connect with other people, co-regulate, and you can be curious, you can play, you can do all the things. And then you have sympathetic, which runs on obviously your fight-flight system, but it also has, how I teach it, it has a positive side. When it's engaged, when the ventral vagal is running the show. Same thing with dorsal. But when the ventral vagal is not coming onto line at all, there's no social engagement happening, then the body just runs sympathetic, dorsal, which means that it's going fight, flight, shut down, fight, flight, shut down. And that's incredibly exhausting for the system, which is why you can't get shit done.
Sounds like it makes sense. Like, I mean...
It does make sense.
Well, I'm saying, like, for my brain, like, my knowledge level, I think it sounds like you know what you're talking about. Me, like, you know, half of the shit you just said sounded Japanese to me.
Okay. So imagine somebody running all the time and then sitting down to take a break, right? But they need 5 minutes to break, but they don't have time to have 5 minutes for a break. They only have 3. So you're like, okay, that's doable. And then they get up and they sprint again, and then they get tired and they rest for 3 minutes, and then they sprint again, and then they come back and they go, oh, fuck, I wish I had those 2 extra minutes. And then they sprint again, and they come back and they're like, I don't even know if 3 minutes is going to be enough. And then they sprint again, and they come back and they're like, fuck, I only feel like I got a minute rest. Right? That's you. So how the fuck are you supposed to feel social engagement when you are motivated by somebody and you're finding that co-regulation and you're finding that motivation to do something and that curiosity to play with the person that's on the screen, that you are pulling you into that ventral vagal system, then you turn it off, they're not there to motivate you, and you try to do it by yourself, and then your mind goes blank and it's like, I don't have an idea in my phone. Or I forgot what I was going to do.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's also like the same thing. It kind of like what Scourge said too. Is like another thing that happens is like the times that I am actually motivated to actually get into something, like, or do something. No, it's like what you said. It's what you said. And so I'll be sitting here and I'll be working on a design, right, or like I'm working on the Oracle cards for this project I'm really into right now. And when I start doing it, like I've got like 15 ideas in my head and I'm like, all right, I got to get these out. I got to get them down. Like these are going to be fucking awesome. They're going to be great. And then my son asks for something. My wife asks for something, you know, and then I get up, I go do it, and I come back and I'm like, fuck. It's like, God damn it, it's gone. Like I can't,
memory.
You know, like, and I get so pissed off because it's just like, it's gone. It's gone.
Yes, right? That's working memory. That's ADHD. That is a prime example of it right there. You need to say, son, hold on 1 second. You need to jot it down. Here, this is what I do now. Now I record it on my phone in my notes. I record what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, all of the ideas, because I get that too. You get a flood of these good ideas, especially when it comes to me figuring clients out. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do, right? So I have to open up my notes, or I'll text myself something where I can speak into the phone, because it's going to go. I know it's going to go right after I finish my thought. And I'm going to try to remember it so I can write it down, and it ain't going to happen. You have got to have your notes in your phone that you can record or text yourself, whatever the fuck it is. You want to text me, and I'll text, you know, whatever it is. You got to speak it. You got to say it right then and there, because if you get interrupted, like you said, it's going to go away because that's working memory. And in ADHD, we have it.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of like just like this spiral of shit, you know.
It is very frustrating.
It is, because the thing is, I know that, like, if given the right circumstances, like, I can be extremely productive, you know, and get a lot of shit done. But then, like, you know, just my brain just doesn't let me, you know.
Yeah. You know those assessments I sent to you?
Yeah, I have those.
Yeah, I don't have them yet. So do those things, and then we can really figure out what's going on. Even with the OSPI quiz on the, I tell everyone to take it. Don't worry about the mid. I know I told you to take the mid. Where I really want to see though is the ADHD, and I really want to see the OSPI, right? Because I'm finding that people that have trauma, even if they're not truly ADHD, they're still going to have these presentations. People that have bipolar, trauma, maybe schizophrenia, they're going to have these cognitive difficulties. I know that you're not schizophrenic, and I'm pretty sure, Malice, that you're not bipolar. I think that a lot of your stuff comes from being on a spectrum.
Well, I mean, it's refreshing. Like even when you told me, like when I know that our sessions were kind of cut short, but you know, even when you told me that you didn't think that, you know, I was borderline, you know, that was refreshing. You know, because borderline's scary. Yeah. Right. Like it.
It can be, because there's different degrees of it too, and that's on a spectrum as well. And again, when somebody has an attachment injury, they're going to present with borderline traits, whether they are or they're not. They may not be a true personality disorder there. It may just be something that's coming along with the trauma, but we won't know until we face the trauma, reprocess the trauma, and get it out of the body, and then see what's left. Because once you start to really learn about yourself, which is why I do polyvagal work before we get into trauma work, not only does it stabilize you in the system, but it enables you to understand your own emotions and to see your emotions on a spectrum. When you can see everything on a spectrum, then you can identify why you're getting a cue of safety or a cue of danger, and you can properly interpret it in the system. Because what's happening is when we grow up with trauma, we are cue of danger biased, and we are always looking for the cues of danger because that's what we needed to do in order to navigate through our childhood. The cues of safety, it wasn't safe to be safe, right? So the cue of safety, they come and go. We don't really pay attention, or we don't really embody them because they aren't necessary for us in the moment. So when we grow up, we're still looking that way. So everything is that cue of danger, and we're not bringing enough cues of safety to the system. So what ends up happening is you become cue of danger biased, and then what happens is the body cues your system at like a level 8 or 9 out of 10 for a fight, flight, sympathetic response, when it should really be cued at like a 2 or a 3. And you start to see that imbalance. And you know, is this really a situation where somebody's holding a knife at my throat? No, it's just me not being able to meet a deadline or something like that. It's not, right? And so you start understanding, and the system starts understanding that it gets to cue you differently, and we can negotiate that and look at how you want the system to cue you, right? I had a client the other day that used a rainy day to help her understand the sadness inside, because sadness was not something that was safe for her when she was growing up to feel. And so she dissociated that part of herself, and it just it sat in the system like a darkness that she was afraid of. But when we pulled it up, it ended up being the child part, and it ended up, you know, having a better understanding of how she's able to work with that part of herself, and now she can accept that part of herself. As you start accepting and bringing home these little pieces of your soul back to the system, then you create this attachment bond with yourself. And when you can feel safe in yourself, then you can feel safe in the rest of the world.
I think I have.
That was just a callback to the beginning of this episode, what she just said right there, and you weren't even here for it. Ladies and gentlemen, she wins the day.
No, like, I mean, that definitely, like, I mean, I can resonate with that, like, when it comes to like fear of abandonment and shit like that. Like, I mean, that's where kind of like my, like, when I have like a disagreement with somebody, right? Like automatically, that's like where I kind of like my brain goes, is like the whole
You shouldn't
abandonment
feel
thing.
that way. I know your history. You have very good reason to feel that way. We haven't gotten a chance to get through it, but once you get through it, it will. The defense mechanism that you've created for yourself was a wonderful and very, very adaptive and wonderful resource for you in the moment. Because since you're not in that situation anymore, that's why you're seeing the discrepancy for it now.
Mm-hmm.
So this part of yourself that has this level of defense, we can't shun it. We can't say that it's wrong. It's just afraid. Look at it as a child that is still in that situation who has found that this is the only way that it could keep yourself safe. So we can acknowledge that the defense mechanism itself was necessary and it was adaptive at the time. But what we have to do now is we have to teach the body a different way, a new relationship template, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
and how to communicate with yourself. And within this communication with self, then you become more of an ally. You become to know what your needs are. You learn to, instead of use the environment to emotionally regulate, you flip the script and you learn to emotionally regulate internally that you should have learned growing up, but you didn't because nobody around you knew how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes medications can help, depending upon the person.
True.
So, and going back to the medication thing, but it's got to be appropriate. It's got to be, it's got to be it's got to be looked at hard. The experiences of the person, not necessarily what is in the DSM-5, but what is the experience of the person? Because the little intricacies of how a person's internal process works is what's going to tell you if it's ADHD or bipolar. So it's important and it doesn't happen a lot because providers just think they could use DSM-5 and then that will be the be-all, end-all. But really, a specialist is somebody who understands the internal experience and can see the differences. Just like when you just told me, yeah, I was working on something that my son asked me and when I came back, I knew right away that's working memory, that's ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So it's learning about the experience of other people that have bipolar 2, right? Or learning about different people who have a complex trauma background,
Right,
and what their experiences are.
yeah, it's weird. Like the only time that I actually feel like and even now, like this is few and far between. It used to be all the time, but not anymore. The only time I feel like I can actually feel focused is when I'm in ritual. Like when I actually like go to the altar and like I go into ritual for that hour and a half that I'm there. Like that is like the only time that I feel like whole.
Well, then I would say to you that since I whatever, then the times that you're getting ready to do your work, whether it is drawing or painting, sculpting, on digital stuff, make it a ritual. Make it some type of ritual where you, for the next hour, cannot be interrupted because you're going into ritual. And if your family understands that ritual means that you are not here, that you cannot be bothered, then that's what I would do. I would set an alarm for you to work at an hour at a time and go in and make it a ritual to create. Make it a ritual to, because you're going to have to dive inside yourself anyway in order to create anything. So make it a ritual. Make it something where you can say to your body, if you've got those loops, earphones or something, just put it on. If somebody comes knocking, you're not gonna answer, right? And make that very clear, and then give yourself that time. Say, okay, we're going into ritual to create. We're going into ritual to commune with Baphomet. We're going into ritual to do this digital project.
Makes sense. That could work.
Idea, honestly.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, because
I think that tricks you mentally too. Like if you have it, if that's how you set it up. If your ritual is the one time where you feel focused and you can sit there and you can find a way to mentally trick yourself to thinking what you're about to work on is some type of ritual, and you just have it set for that time frame, it gives you the ability to do the thing.
And routine.
Mm-hmm.
Routine's important with ADHD or autism too. Like, I come to this desk every single day. Every day I come here and I work. And I shouldn't, right? I should have self-care times or whatever, but it's part of my routine. And because of my autism, if I don't want to make myself feel out of place during the week, then at least once a day I'll come, I'll sit down, I'll look and see what I have to do. I'll check my emails, or so, you know, maybe I'll do some writing or something like that, or read an article, but routine is really important. Also, you could put shoes on in the house, right? I've heard this before. People cooking their brains with ADHD, you put your shoes on like you're going to go out and go somewhere, and it makes your brain think that it's time to go and work.
Yeah, it's one of the same like little tips and tricks that I do for people doing like the small goals, which you weren't here for the goal thing, but like, so waking up in the morning and making your bed, it's a small victory, right? It's one accomplishment. The same thing ties into if you get dressed and you put shoes on and you're working from home or doing something in the house, it kind of tricks you a little bit and you're thinking, all right, so I'm ready to go. I'm going to do something and I'm already dressed to go, and it kind of helps to give you the ability to do the thing.
And that's one thing that I because I work from home, so that was like actually something that like I knew that I had to do like when I started working from home. I can't get up and sit here in front of the computer in my pajamas. I can't do it. Like, especially in a work day, like Monday to Friday. Like when I get up, even if it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, I get completely dressed. I put my shoes on. And even it's just walking across the hall. That's all I'm doing. Like my bedroom's across the hall. I just walk across the hall. And, because I don't know, like, I mean, I need to keep that part going, right? Like, the whole taking a shower, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, sitting, like being prepared for the day, because like I know me, and I know that like if I start sitting here at this desk in my pajamas, with my slippers on, it's done. It's done, because I'm gonna start falling into really bad habits really easily.
I put a sweater on, and then I'll come sit, and I'm ready to go.
Definitely.
Here I am on a Sunday wearing a collared shirt, sitting here talking to Malice, so I do the same thing. Granted, I will say I'm in pajama pants, but it's cold in my house and it is comfortable. But at least it's fine. I'm presentable on camera at the least. I even like fixed the beard up before I saw Malice. Like, I gotta impress him a little bit. Come on.
Because I have to be comfortable too. Like, I have to be comfy and ready. So I always have my mug.
Yep.
Working with me, that tells my body, okay, get the brain going. Here we go.
Yep. I mean, I'm wearing Jankos, so I mean they're big, baggy, and comfortable anyway. So
I remember.
Are those the ones that you bought like the year ago, and you were so happy when you ordered them, and you're like, dude, I finally got my Jankos.
You're awesome.
Dude, I have 8 pairs of Jankos now.
Are you up to 8 now? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
I replaced my Jankos. Just these big harem pants.
Hey, I've got I think they're called fishing pants or something like that, like Japanese fishing pants. Like you literally have to wrap it around you and then tie it off, right? Yeah, those are so comfortable, so comfortable. They're huge. Like when you have them open, like it's like like 'cause you have to like wrap it like halfway around your body, then you have to roll it, and then it like comes like this much above your ankle, like. But they're super comfortable. Right. I call them my ritual pants, but they're actually Japanese fisherman pants. So,
does anybody have any questions or anything?
Yeah, does anybody in the chat want to ask anything? Like, I mean, we definitely have gone over a lot today.
This has been amazing. I'm not even, as for this first episode back, honestly, I don't
Did
think
it
we
exceed
could have
your
done this any
did
better.
it exceed your expectations, Scourge?
Listen, we need to keep her with us every single time we do this, because honestly, like, there are things that you have said that, like, I'm not a professional in it. I haven't gone into it. I haven't as much as I wanted to, you know, and it's something I plan to do in the future once I can get my wife back into school and she does what she wants to do. I'll work for now so where she can eventually do the shit. And it's something I want to go into because it's been a passion of mine. So there are a lot of things that you said that even my brain was like, holy fuck. Like I didn't see the connection. And like when you put it, like a lot of the things just like made more sense. I try to be as aware of my own shit as possible, just because I'm the only one dealing with my shit right now. I don't see a therapist yet. I'm not on a medication regimen yet. Like, so it's just me. My wife doesn't know anything about it. My daughter, you know, she's dealing with her ADHD and all that, and we're figuring things out as we go, right? So a lot of the things that you've said have just kind of flipped the switch a little bit, and it's been very enlightening. So I'm very glad that you decided to come and join us.
Yeah, I'm always looking.
I told you, Malice, there's a reason for everything. I woke up thinking about this shit. I fucking told you.
It must be meant to be, because I just woke up and just went on there, and I just happened to see that you guys were on, and I was like, oh, yay.
Yeah, this is a show that we used to do. It was like a year and a half ago. We used to do it on Sundays, and like days switched a few times, and because both of us have like a passion for mental health, right? And so we kind of came up with the idea of doing kind of like a podcast that was dedicated to talking about mental health, you know, and you know, just to kind of give people, maybe like people that, you know, just need to hear somebody else is going through shit and getting through shit so they can get through shit. You know, and it was doing pretty well. You know, we had to put it on pause for a while, and Scourge and I have been, you know, talking about bringing it back for the last few months now. You know, so, and I hit him up, I think it was like yesterday or the day before, and I was like, hey, you know, where are you at with this? Like, you know, like, are you like, 'cause I'm trying to figure out my schedule, right? Because I want to start going back into sessions with you. So I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm going to be doing and what it is I'm not going to be doing. So I hit him up, and then he just randomly hits me up today. He's like, hey, what are you doing? Like, debating on whether or not I'm going to work out. He's like, well, how do you feel about doing an episode? I was like, all right, sure, fuck it, let's do it.
It's like, dude, I'm telling you, like yesterday we had Friendsgiving, right? It's the yearly thing we do. We have like my wife's fucking best friend comes over, and she brought her daughter over because apparently, you know, our daughters have grown up together. So like all day yesterday, I'm sitting there, I'm like making chicken cutlets, and I'm like, really, like, it's time. And I've just been like, it's been on my mind for so long, and I was like, you know, maybe, I don't know if it's just like a phase, if it'll go away, and like if I forget about it, maybe it's not that time. But like all day yesterday, and I woke up today, and I'm sitting on the couch, and I was like, I just loaded up the dishwasher, I go to sit down, I'm drinking a cup of tea, and I'm like, wonder what Malice is doing. I was like, no, I think it's definitely time. And I come in here, and I was like, this is one of those things where it was just, there's a reason I keep thinking about it, and I'm just, it's
really
time.
Floor. Yeah, anything to Malice about doing like a polyvagal class in your Discord.
Yeah, I had mentioned that.
So I don't know about that, if you're down for that. I mean,
yeah, go for it.
Can you explain what that is to me really quick?
Okay, so polyvagal theory is a theory that Stephen Porges came up with that determines that we have our autonomic nervous system, right? And that's split into two parts, which is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system, right? Sympathetic system is responsible for our fight-flight responses, motivation, movement, stuff like that. The parasympathetic is your eat, breathe, sleep, you know, digestion, rest. Okay, so that's the opposite, obviously, of sympathetic. Well, Stephen Porges said there's actually two branches of the parasympathetic system as it applies to how we interpret the cues of safety and cues of danger when they come in. And that is in the belly, which is that shutdown and collapse. So you might want to think of maybe an animal in the wild. If they're getting chased, they get caught. When that animal gets caught and realizes that they're about to get killed, the body prepares for the kill. It dissociates, it shuts down, it starts, releasing morphine so that it tries to be a little less painful when it dies. Well, there's also the social engagement system. This social engagement system, we're picking up cues of danger, cues of safety from the tone and what we hear, from throat, from the tone of the voice, the muscles
The
around
sound
the
of their
lips,
footsteps, the weight of the footsteps, all of that
right,
stuff.
and just the body language and the muscles around the lips, and all of this social engagement system is telling us a lot about whether we can connect with another person or not. That social engagement connection is what that attachment is based off of when you're a baby. So if you don't get that, then you're going to have an attachment injury. What happens when we have an attachment injury? Well, attachment is unnegotiable. We cannot not attach to a caregiver because as a baby, if you do, then you will fail to thrive and you will die. So the baby, if they get a good attachment, then they grow up with secure attachment. They see the world as a social engagement place. They see it as safe to explore. They expect that the world is going to support them in their exploration. But if we have an environment of danger, then we are going to perceive, that's how the world is going to perceive us. The world is very dangerous. And so this conditions our system on how to pick up the cues of safety and danger so that we can safely navigate through life and still be alive, right? Well, what happens is exactly what I said before, is that it gets unbalanced. And so we become cue of danger biased and no cues of safety. So you are constantly in that sympathetic arousal state, hyper aroused of always looking for those cues of danger, never feeling safe. And the body can only go from that into dorsal, which is that shutdown. So you can think of it, if you think of it on a spectrum, now your system is limited to the higher ends of the spectrum, working between a 5 and a 10 in both sympathetic and dorsal. There's no social engagement, and without having this social engagement, you can't run your sympathetic and your dorsal systems in a less than 5 on the spectrum, which would be like reading a book, right? So when you're reading a book, you are engaged, you are curious, you're learning, which is the social engagement system, but you are also actively doing something with the brain. You're envisioning what's going on in the story. You're feeling how it might feel if they're in a fight or if they're swimming in a pool or whatever it is, right? But you're also disengaged from the rest of the world so that you're also engaging in that dorsal, right? So that would be like an example of the three systems working in alignment and in balance with each other, up and down, while the social engagement system is running the show. But once you get above a 5 on your spectrum, social engagement shuts off. The sympathetic system takes over fully and writes the story for the rest of the system. So in the polyvagal work, there are different techniques and awarenesses that we bring so that we can interrupt the system and we can apply a regulating resource and learn how to emotionally regulate the system while also retraining it to identify the cues of safety and the cues of danger and to see if we are cueing the right cue at the appropriate level. And if not, then bringing that awareness to this is not the right level of cue. It needs to actually be down here and working and doing that. While doing that in that process, you also become more attached with the self. You learn to listen to your intuition. You learn to trust the self, and you learn to have this whole relationship with the system and how and when to apply boundaries or what to do for your needs in that moment. You also learn if you have any neurodivergence. What does that mean? How does that affect you? And how did it affect you when you were younger? If you've never been diagnosed with neurodivergence, we look at the neurotypical societal dominant discourse and say, well, if you had ADHD and you've been told that you're fucking lazy or that you're not disciplined or that you need to think before you act, well, guess what, people? These are all things that we can't do because of our emotions, because of our executive dysfunction.
So based on, like people growing up, right? So, you grow up in a high traumatic type of situation. So, you grow up with an abusive father. Okay. Let's just try to tie that in really quick. You get to the point when you're younger where Malice, you and I are about to go right down a road right here. So you're growing up, and you do something, you get in trouble, you get the shit beat out of you by your dad, right? You get to a point where you're in your room casually, like listening to music or playing a game or something like that, and you hear footsteps coming. You pause, you freeze, that fight or flight thing type of goes in, and you can tell the mood of the person coming into your room by the weight of their footsteps. That type of thing gets tied in, and then you wind up relying on that type of ability throughout the rest of your life, where you can tell danger or safety based on,
Right.
as you said, tone of voice, weight of the footsteps, body language, body posture, all of that. You can tell it, and that becomes the standard. So what you're doing is trying to find a way to retrain that or strengthen that.
That is the relationship template that you learned. Yeah. I will teach you a healthy relationship template. You're going to learn new relationship templates. You will learn how to have a new relationship template with yourself, with the people around you, and with the people that are still left in your life, whether that means putting boundaries up and cutting them out, or learning how to deal with them so that you can have a functional relationship with that person, but understanding your needs and your boundaries and when to know enough is enough, and feel confident that you can put up those boundaries and that you can lead the conversation. So if you have a father that you're still talking to, but he's been an abusive asshole to you your whole life, and you hear him starting to get all crazy on the phone, you won't feel bad about going, excuse me, but if you continue to speak to me in that level of voice, then I'm going to hang up the phone. And he's like, fuck you. And you go,
click. Yeah, no, I had to, it took me a long time to train myself to do that, because that's where it all came from. That was, it's even nowadays when we would like take my daughter to go visit them, so she can see her grandparents. I can tell when both of them are starting to get like aggravated, and I just immediately remove myself from the situation, because I don't like that feeling of anxiety that I get when that's escalating.
Yeah.
And I can tell.
Imagine you came to somebody and did EMDR, and we reprocessed that feeling of that anxiety out when you start hearing them yell. Now when they start to yell and get aggravated, you'll just recognize that they're getting aggravated, and you're like, this is not going to go well, so I'm going to take my child out of here, or I'm going to take myself out of here, not because you're anxious and it's triggering you, but because you just don't have time for it. I don't have any spoons for this bullshit. Out. Bye. Right?
Interesting. That's very interesting.
So that's the importance of the work. So with the heavy footsteps, again, the same thing. 25 years later, here comes the wife or the partner running up the stairs, and it sounds like that, and you're now thinking, like, what did I do, right?
Yeah.
What did I do?
Yeah.
And if you try to tell your partner, please don't run up the stairs like that. Please don't, that's kind of impossible for somebody who's just naturally heavy-footed.
My wife hates it. I trained myself since I was younger to walk very quietly, is to not disturb.
Right.
So I'm not a small guy. Like I'm 6'2", I'm 280 pounds. Like I'm a big dude. But I walk the quietest in my house, from my 11-year-old daughter, who's like 98 pounds soaking wet, and my wife, who's like 5'2.5". Like I walk quieter than everyone in my house. So I walk out of my office, and if my wife doesn't hear it, I'm like, hey babe, and she fucking jumps, and I'm like, why are you so scared? She's like, I don't hear you walking. And like, I've trained myself to be like that since I was a little kid. And it's hilarious that I don't make any fucking sound when I'm walking, but my wife and my child are like fucking dinosaurs.
Yeah, right? So the beauty about that is something like that, where you do some EMDR work on that and you get that out of there, that won't bother you anymore. But you'll notice, you'll remember, you'll be like, I remember when that used to bother me. It's so crazy that it doesn't now, and how much.
That's really cool. That's fascinating. Thank you for that. Thank you for elaborating. And Malice, I'm sorry, we get to the questions now. It was one of those things.
No,
my
it's
brain
fine.
was like, I have an itch. I needed her to scratch it.
No, but I mean, that is even like, helpful, like kind of like on like things that I've got going on in my head. I have like certain reactions that I have to certain things, like
I remember
understanding.
when you and I got into that topic on like our third episode. You and I went down like memory lane, and bro, that episode got so heavy.
Yeah. All right. So we got 2 questions so far. I haven't seen any more come in. So first question would be any advice on how to separate work from home? This is directed at Scarlett.
Separating work from home. Well, I mean, all right, I got the same thing here. If your office has a curtain or a door, when that is shut, that means they know that they can't disturb me. They know that I'm either in an interview, or I'm doing a podcast, or I'm with a client, or in a meeting. So how you separate that is you've got to make your room, you got to make an office in your room that you don't do anything else but work or exercise in, whatever it is. And you have to be able to shut the rest of the house out and have a boundary that they know, unless it's an emergency. They can either text you or whatever, but that is the only way that I've been able to do it. But know that I'm a homebody. I've always been that way. So working from home for me is like the safest place ever. So it's easy for me to come into here. And I guess that's why I have to come in here every day, because it's my work. I know that when I come in here, my mind frame is work. So I don't use this office for anything else besides that. So that's what I would recommend. Have one space or spot, something that indicates to you that this is work and that you can't be disturbed. Because if you're working, if you were to be doing it in an office, then they wouldn't have access to you in that moment either. So it's being able to, for the household also to understand that you're undisturbed, you're at work.
I'd like to add a caveat to that as well. So my work, this is obviously my office. I have like my desk over there with my work laptop, and this is where I work out as well. But this is also where I play my games, which whether it's work related for stream or like relaxation time when I come in and I just want to do something. Another way to add into that, when you're coming in to just like play games or something and you're kind of like okay with dealing with people, you know, leave your door open type of situation. So it's like open door policy. Your kid can come in, your wife can come in, talk to you, that whole thing. But also at the same time, if your office is combined and you use it as like your place to escape, you can have the same policy with closing the door. And so either, you know, you knock on the door and just let me know you're coming in. Don't just kind of barge in. I kind of need my time type of situation. But it's all about setting that boundary, as you said. But that's more of like if it's combined, you know, because I know not everyone. Yeah, so it's just kind of one of those things.
But it's the same, you know, it's the same thing, right? But they know that if the curtains are closed, the biggest thing is when the curtains are closed, not only do they know, but I know.
Yeah.
I know that it's time to work. You know,
Absolutely.
When the curtains are open, then they can come in and out if they've got something to ask me. I don't really like it too much, like if I'm writing a paper, working memory, but you know, they have access to me only when they're curtains.
It also makes it a little more difficult when you've got kids too, like that.
Yeah, kids don't have a hard time understanding boundaries. Oh.
Yep. Well, no, they have a hard time understanding your boundaries, but they completely understand theirs and need you to understand theirs at all times.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm a father, I know.
So, you know, when you have little kids in your home, it's definitely much harder because they don't understand. And you can't get mad at them, right? Because they don't know. And they don't understand it. You know, it takes a while for kids to learn. Okay, curtain closed, that, you know, whatever that is. But, I could never, even though I would love it, but I could never work from my bedroom. It has to be a separate room.
So this is like working from home. So how would you apply this to somebody? So let's say, for example, how to help or like help somebody kind of leave work at work, right? So when they come home, not to bring work home.
Change into pajamas. Anyway,
that's hard. It's that could be one way, right? An indicator. So it's really about an indicator for the person, the internal process, because they're either going to bring it home or they're not. You know, I mean, even with me, sometimes I'm still left thinking about clients at night, and then I will come up with an idea and I'll write it down or I'll voice record it into my phone instead of coming into the office, opening the file, and then starting to annotate, right? I'll just remember, okay, I want to try this, right? And I'll have a piece of paper, I'll write it down, and I'll put it away. Because if you don't give yourself, if people are bringing their work home, there's a reason why that's happening. And as long as they can take notes on ideas or things that are coming up, and that should be at least, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the person. And if you'd have to give me like a specific issue, and then I could probably work around that. But just as a generalization, you have to make that decision. You have to be able to leave it at work. If an idea comes up, I will write it down, and then I'll be done with it. I'll get to it tomorrow. Or I make notes before I leave my calendar. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then I know what I'm doing tomorrow, and then that's it. I leave work. Mm-hmm. So it's either making a list and a plan for you to work on the next day for the things that you have not finished today, or leaving yourself the option to have a notebook where you can write ideas as they come. Mm-hmm. You're not really working, but your mind is still thinking about it, and you're not feeling the pressure to, I've got to remember this for tomorrow. Write it down and put it in the fuck it bucket and deal with it tomorrow.
I like that, the fuck it bucket. Okay, that works. All right. The next question, let's see, where is it at? What conditions have a risk of being misdiagnosed as borderline personality disorder?
ADHD, autism, anything that deals with an attachment injury, anything that causes trauma where you're afraid of a rejection, all of those things. Anything that has to do with fear of rejection, fear of a person, or fear of being alone, anything that has anything to do with an attachment injury is going to show up like borderline.
Okay.
Because that's what borderline is. Borderline is, it's this feeling of epic emptiness, right? Because people that have a personality trait, they have one trait that is excessive, like paranoid personality disorder. That's the easy one to look at. They are suspicious of everything and everyone. They don't trust a goddamn person. And it is perfectly okay to be suspicious, right? There are times in your life where you have to be suspicious. But when you're at your kid's birthday party, you shouldn't have this high level of suspicion of the people that are coming to the party, right? You shouldn't have a high level of suspicion of, I don't know, I guess you can, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So it's this excessive trait. So, they don't, all the other traits are not as developed. So there's this like emptiness feeling and they get scared. It's the same thing with borderline. Borderline is just so overconsumed with rejection, fear of feeling the rejection, fear of feeling that loneliness, that floating through, it's like annihilation terror. You're just floating through space and you have no connection to anybody, even yourself. That's the difference, right? So with the personality disorder, you're going to see it pervasive throughout life, pervasive through all relationships. And ADHD kind of presents in the same way, right? Because one of the things you'll notice about ADHD is that you have a hard time making and keeping friends. And that is something that you see over the whole lifeline. So that can be easily looked at and go, maybe he has borderline personality disorder. Or the lack of trust that you get with CPTSD or PTSD, and that hyper arousal, that switching, that happens there too. So people might see that and go, you have borderline personality disorder. But it takes more than that. It takes more of a longer assessment to really determine.
Okay. There's another question. It says, how do you know when it's time to reach out and get help?
The fact that you're asking me that signifies that you need to reach out to somebody. When you're wondering, do I need to talk to someone? then you need to talk to someone. When you feel like you're alone, when you feel like you can't get past certain triggers, when you feel like fears or paranoia, or you're having trouble finding connection, then you need to talk to someone. I think everybody needs to talk to someone, even if you're feeling good. Something, because maybe there's something in there that you're repressing. Maybe there's something in there that you can learn.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that.
There's a reason why this is called the Reach Out Mental Health Podcast.
Right.
Why we named it that.
Yep, exactly. So there's a comment that I want to address. So it says mental health is displaced energy and requires a shamanic adjustment. I want to point out that I do agree, and I do feel that, incorporating your spirituality into your mental health and allowing your spirituality to elevate your mental health and move you forward is very helpful. However, I do want to kind of clear, like, I don't want to sit here and say that I don't think it's the only thing that needs to be done. Right. If you're really working on your mental health, there are things that you need to work on. It's not just energy work. It goes far beyond that, to things that, have nothing to do with spirituality. So I just don't want people to see that comment and say that, that's the absolute, right? So, also, to the same person that said that, I don't know who you're talking about, because they said here at the bottom, they said, in my observation briefly on this live, your energy is occupied by an abuser. Remove it, and you are ready to go. Tigers, I will assist to heal the I don't like it when people talk like that. I mean, that's just me. I'm not trying to be rude, or I do not like it when people talk like, I don't know if you're talking to Scarlet, to Scourge, to me. I don't know who you're talking to, but if you're talking to me, you don't know me. So yeah, I highly doubt that you can see through the screen that my chakras are at a standstill. I don't know, but I just don't like it when people talk like that, because you're talking in absolutes, that you are the one that has the answers, and that's not good for anybody. Right? Even Scarlett, being my therapist in a therapy session, doesn't speak in absolutes. Doesn't say you have to do this. It's more, I think it would be a good idea if you tried this. So don't approach people and come in and start talking like you know something that other people don't. Because me personally, the way I am, it makes me defensive. Because I feel like you're coming in here and you're trying to overtake the show. Right? So, look, there it is. You are in the situation, not me. No, I'm not. So
I understand where he's trying to come in at, and speaking energetically, shamanic, because there are some shamanic practices that are pretty close to kind of what EMDR does, because they are using drums as a bilateral stimulation, and you can use those tones as well as the finger movements, the eye movements, or you can tap on yourself. So I could see, how that bilateral stimulation in a shamanic ritual could help somebody if guided properly by somebody through that trauma. I can't speak from experience because I've never been involved in anything like that, but in the talks that I've had with people about shamanistic rituals for trauma, that is what I have concluded. That's why it works for some people. So that will work for some people, but for some people it will not. For some people, there has to be more of a psychoanalytic approach. So if people decide they want to go for shamanic ritual and they want to do ayahuasca and they want to try to clear their trauma that way, all have at it. That's your decision. You know, what works for you may not work for another person. And there is a little bit of that energetic shift, of course. I mean, with any kind of work, there's going to be an energetic shift in the body, and that's why I talk about bringing the child parts home, and you're really just incorporating yourself back into itself, and you are combining and pulling down the amnesic walls so that you can reattach to the self. So that's kind of bringing things home. And in an energetic sense, whenever that happens and you bring another piece of you home, then it makes that energy a little bit more full and it makes it stronger, and you can vibrate at a higher frequency, I guess you could say. So there is an element, but it's not the only way. And that's why I don't talk in absolutes, you know?
It makes sense.
But I also understand, I think I don't know why I can't hear Malice. But I do understand why Malice, I do understand why you would feel defensive about that when somebody, I can understand that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I understand, like they even answered, SERP, like, so, I mean, I understand you trying to give advice, but it's the way in which you are giving the advice. Like, when I suggest something to somebody, I say, hey, I think that this might benefit. I'm not against energy work by any means of the imagination. At the beginning of this podcast, we talked very in-depthly about the idea that, you know, my being part of the left-hand path and my work with Baphomet has helped me greatly to improve my mental health. But I am also aware and understand that there's other parts of it that my spirituality aren't going to be able to touch because I can't reach that part of me. And I need to work through shit in order to reach in and touch that part of me. And once I can actually touch that part of me and kind of start working through that on a more personal level, then I can incorporate that into the ritual work.
The only thing I would say about, you know, like that is that the person is, you never know if you need to have, like, I don't know if a shaman would look at a person and see, do they dissociate? I don't know if a shaman would look at a person and say, okay, we need to fractionate this event because the flooding may be too much. And you can actually re-traumatize a person like that if you just throw on some drums. And I'm not saying that this person does that. I'm just saying, like, allowing a person to explore the inner unconscious, knowing that there's horrific trauma in there, could cause a re-traumatization if it's not guided correctly or fractionated correctly, because if the person dissociates back into that trauma, then they're going to relive it fully. Because you're putting them into a different state of consciousness where it's almost like a hypnotic state, and that is one way to put somebody back into the actual event where they're seeing and feeling it almost like a hallucination, and it could be traumatizing. So it really depends upon the person. I don't know what kind of vetting they do for people that go into rituals like that. So that's my only thing about that type of work. I don't think that every person is appropriate, and I don't know how they figure out if a person is appropriate for that or not.
Mm-hmm, exactly. I mean, because the thing is like working with you, for example, like, obviously one of the key points of why I wanted to work with you from the get-go was because of your association with the left-hand path and your understanding of the left-hand path. But that also doesn't mean that I want my therapy to be completely focused on that part of it. Like, I also, like, made sure, at least to my own comfort level, that you know what the hell you were talking about, like, when it comes to helping people. So, like, I don't want to just jump in and say, oh, well, yeah, well, they believe in demons too, so, you know, this is the person, but they have no fucking clue how to deal with a person's brain, right? Like, there has to be that balance, right?
Yeah, and that's where that interview comes in, right? Because you always want to interview your healthcare workers. You want to always interview your doctors. You always, you know, you want to find out, because what if somebody has, like, dissociative identity disorder and then they go to a psychiatrist to find out that they don't believe in it? Like, what fucking good is that? You have to be able to be on the same page as your therapist, especially your therapist and your doctors, because that therapeutic alliance that's the first time that this person may be trusting another person in their entire life. And so that therapeutic alliance is what really, really facilitates. That to me is the most important part of the whole relationship that you have with the person, because without that therapeutic alliance and that trust, and you won't get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, SERP, I mean, as terms as like it being a suggestion or being kind of like, hey, I'm offering kind of like a potential solution. I appreciate it. I guess for me personally, I just didn't appreciate the way that you said it, the specific structuring. So, the advice is appreciated. I just, maybe make it seem more like advice and less like this is what needs to be done. Point.
More open approach. If you're going to do the shaman thing, people, then just make sure you interview your shaman. If he's the right person.
Exactly. And on that note, I think we're going to call. We've been doing 2 hours and 20 minutes on this thing already. This like I expected this to be like like a 30-minute show just talking about like it coming back.
Not our first one, but this is what happened the very first time we did this. Remember, and we were like, yeah, we need to set a time limit for these. But honestly, seriously, Scarlett, thank you so much for joining, and it was a pleasure meeting you, and very enlightening for myself as well. Malice, thank you. This has been a fantastic episode back. Like I will go back and re-listen to this one at some point just because this has just been great. So thank you both very much.
And Scarlett, we're going to be doing this hopefully on the regular every Sunday. So like if I don't know.
Let's just discuss. Do we want to do this weekly again, or should we stick with the bi-weekly?
I think bi-weekly works. I don't want to overdo it. But it would be like if you want to come on like once a month,
I'd love to have you personally, and I know Malice wouldn't have an issue with it, so you are more than welcome to join us and discuss whatever random shit we talk about each and every time.
It'll be 100% mental health related, that's for sure. That's the guarantee. But it would be nice to, because I do want to incorporate this time around. I do want to incorporate a little bit of the left-hand path in it from my side of things. And I think it would be nice because Scourge is more into kind of like Asatru, kind of more like more like the Viking path.
Okay.
So, but I would it would be nice to have you on here because you have the knowledge that we simply don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm totally down.
Awesome. So I'll shoot you a message and we'll discuss like days and when and stuff like that. Also, this week I will have all of that stuff done for you this week.
Would be great.
So,
no problem.
We can get back into it. All
yeah,
right.
let's go over them again, and I'll resend it. Don't do anything yet. I'll resend you the stuff I want you to do, and
okay.
I'll be more than happy to come. It was nice meeting you.
It was nice meeting you as well. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Good.
All right. So on that note, guys, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for being here. And as always, hail thyself. See you guys later.